All right, welcome to a new episode of the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. And like I always say, this is a podcast that will make you a smarter investor, period. And we're going to have a little fun. Not that we don't normally have fun here on Opening Bid Unfiltered. We're going to have a little fun here and lean into sports. And I want to welcome in Greg Olsen, sportscaster and former NFL tight end. It feels like I'm still watching you on TV, Greg. I mean, you're doing the sports. I remember you playing. So welcome to the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
And look, I told you briefly off camera, your initiative here, Youth Inc., really hit home for me, based on a lot of experience I had growing up playing sports. Tell us first a little bit about the platform and what motivated you to create it.
Yeah, so it's really been a lifetime journey kind of getting to this point. I grew up in North Jersey, the son of a high school football coach. I grew up in locker rooms, grew up, kind of just around teams on the sideline for as young as I could remember. And my parents were both school teachers. So, high school, youth sports, everything in between was really our life. It was our vacations. It was our summers. It was everything. So, after a full career of playing, going off to college, and then obviously getting a chance to make a career out of the game of football, I found myself as a father of three, as a husband, as someone now trying to raise three young kids in a very different sports landscape than it was for me all those years ago. And I'd find myself in at night laying in bed with my wife, and we're talking over what we're doing and how we're managing it, and finally came to the realization, like, if we're struggling, if someone like me who's spent his entire life in this world is having a hard time navigating and having a hard time coming up with the right answers, I'm sure there's millions of people across the country that are having the exact same sleepless nights and having the exact same questions over dinner. So we set out for kind of our mission on Youth Inc. is to go have those conversations, bring in some of the top thought leaders, some of the top people, people in the area, whether it's former athletes, coaches, sports psychologists. We had Malcolm Gladwell, world-renowned authors. So we've had really everybody in that world to just give us experiences, give us perspective, and ultimately just find the best practices to help our sons, daughters, coaches, parents navigate this world.
Yeah, no, it's a hell of an initiative. So what are the biggest challenges you're seeing in youth sports today?
I think, there's a, listen, I want to be clear. I make sure I'm clear here on all this. Like, there are so many great things going on in the youth sports world. Like, it is still, in my opinion, the greatest way to mold young kids' lives and to teach them life lessons and have them grow up to be not professional athletes, but like we say, just professional people. That's the ultimate goal. But I think probably if I had to pick one overall issue that's facing the world of youth sports, we've really sped up the developmental cycle. What used to be a race to 17, 18, right? We wanted to know by the time you were a junior and senior in high school, how good of a varsity athlete were you? And were you potentially going to go play some level of college sports at Division 1, 2, 3, junior college? Doesn't really matter what level. We've now expedited that development curve, and we've now tried to force those questions onto families about what is your son or daughter's future sport? What is going to be their calling? Where are they going to go play in college? We've now expedited that to middle school. We're now asking these kids between 10 and 12 years old to pick one sport, dedicate all 12 months a year to that one sport, put all your chips in the table and go. And what we've done is we've created more talented young athletes, right? The young middle school and high school athletes of today are very trained. They're very skilled. They're weightlifting, they're eating, their programs, their body work. They're doing things that didn't used to happen until college. But as a result, we are creating less well-rounded and ultimately worse athletes in the long term because they are so singular, skill-focused at such an early age. And it's just the nature of the atmosphere that has been created. And I would love to see it go back to where we give kids the breadth, we give kids the scope to say, I'm going to play a different sport every season. And then maybe as a high school junior, that it's obvious where my future lies. And maybe I decide to then go all in. But leading up till that point, how do we know what these kids are going to be good at when they're, juniors in high school? We're asking them to make that decision in 5th and 6th grade.
Yeah, no, that is wild. I mentioned briefly off camera, this really got me thinking back to some of my horrible experiences just playing Little League as a kid. But back in the early 90s, late 80s, it was, I had a bad game, I didn't get dinner or I got a good smack. This is just the reality of it. But the pressures seem very different now.
Well, now the question becomes, you're not just living within the good and bad game within your household, right? And a lot of these tournaments and a lot of the way these sports are now set up, they're not just local events anymore. They're national events. They're on social media. Every highlight, every pitch, every basket, every touchdown, every 7-on-7 quarterback is rated. We're ranking kids in the class of 2033. They're in fifth grade.
Wow.
It's just so we're just teaching these kids that they're living and dying with the end result of every game, of every practice, as opposed to let's fall in love with the work, right? Like let's fall in love with the process of improvement, the process of development, the process of developing both physical and mental toughness, dealing with adversity, grit. I mean, all the things that everyone knows are the key lessons that come out of the youth sports experience. For 99+% of the people who play sports as a young kid, they don't make a living playing that sport. So when you strip all that away, we the outcomes of these young games have become the predominant marker of success, and it's accumulation of talent. It's very little team practice. It's very little team culture. It's get as many good kids to meet you at the ball field on a Saturday to go try to win that tournament. And if you lose, you better do a better job getting better kids for the following tournament. The idea is not get back to work on Monday and let's grind and let's work and let's really improve the kids we have and let's ultimately get them better. We're seeing less and less of that. And as a result, we are, again, like I said before, we are pushing the development phase to the back burner when that should be the only thing any adult driving any of these decisions. It should only be about the both immediate and long-term development curve for every young athlete. That is all that matters. It is a race to 18, not to 12.
Yeah, and putting all these pressures, on a fifth grader. I mean, it has to have some psychological impact. I imagine that's why you have a component on, you think, for that. I mean, what type of toll is it having on the kids?
Well, I think we have a lot of kids that at 12 years old, 11 years old, were told that your future is as a college basketball player, baseball player, girls soccer. I've quit all my other sports. I don't get to see my other friends in the other sports because all I do now is play soccer or volleyball or baseball or whatever I've been told I'm really good at in fifth and sixth grade. And then all of a sudden, for every kid that does make it and they go on to play college athletics in that particular sport, I guess you could say it was worth it. But those kids are just few and far between. That we just know the statistics. The vast majority of these kids are never going to play sports at a higher level than high school. And then you look back and you say, what was it all for? What did I do it for? As a high school sophomore, I didn't get to go from, I look back at my high school career. I always put things through like my own perspective, right? And from the time I was a freshman in high school, it was very clear I was going to be a college football player. Beyond that, who knows? But I was going to be a college football player at some level and go on a scholarship. I could have very easily walked away and never played a down of basketball, never ran for the track team, never threw the shot put, never went to the Penn relays with my buddies as a senior to just go run in the 4x100 meter. Like all of those high school memories that I made that had nothing to do with football never would have existed in today's world because I would have been pigeonholed to playing just football and then graduate early and leave your high school prom, leave the spring semester of your senior year because if you don't get the spring ball, you're never going to play at Miami or Notre Dame. So it was just a very different, and I look back on those memories, those last couple months of my senior year, playing with my buddies on the track team, playing high school basketball. We weren't that good. We played hard. We had fun. We went out for pizza after school, and we were just high school kids. We don't have that anymore. You're not allowed to just play a high school sport unless the idea is you're going to go to college for it. And I look around and I say, 4 kids in our school are going to go play college sports. Yeah. We got to fill all these teams. Just go play, compete, have fun, and carry those lessons to the rest of your life. But it's becoming harder and harder to convince families that that's in their best interest.
As someone who played sports really at the highest level for an extended period of time, how have you managed it with your kids? Expectations. How have you fostered their growth?
And listen, at times we've gotten caught up in the mix, no different than everybody else, right? I sit here now, and not pretending to have all the answers, not pretending to say, hey, our path that we've taken is the only path. Everyone should be like us. There's a lot of car ride homes. There's a lot of post games. There's a lot of team family dinners that we haven't handled right. And our conversations were probably not age appropriate. And our conversations of what we're asking our kids to do, we've learned a lot of the things that we try to share here on You Think a lot of times are just personal things that we got wrong. And now we're out there saying, hey, we kind of learned the hard way, like a lot of parents do, and they only do it through their own. You can tell people all they want, but until you experience it for yourself, you don't really understand it. So a lot of it is just through personal, trial and error. But the one thing we have really tried to hone in on, and the one thing that we keep consistent in our house with our 3 kids is we are going to fall in love with the work. We are going to fall in love with the development. The end result may be great. It may be terrible. But if that's the only thing that matters, we are going to ride the waves of emotion, and this is going to be a nightmare. You might have a great game on a Saturday. All I want to know is, did you have a great game because Monday through Friday, you really were diligent in all of the work, both with your team and then also on your own that you put in? If the answer is yes, then I want them to make the connection between success and work. If you go 0 for 3 in your baseball game, but you did that same exact work that you did the week before when you went 3 for 3, no problem, right? Like to me, it's all about connecting the process to the outcome, not just saying what was the outcome, because you might have good outcomes. You might be a great athlete and you might do well as a young kid. But if you don't build those good habits and you don't build those good processes, at some point it's going to crash. And all we're doing is misleading these kids. We're just giving them a false sense of reality. And I think that's equally dangerous. So we focus on the work. We focus on our habits. We focus on our attitude. You ground out to the third baseman, you better run through first base full speed, get back in the dugout, put your helmet down, get on the fence and cheer on your teammate. Like that's the expectation. If it's anything other than that, it's going to be a problem.
Well said. Hang with us, Greg. We're going to go off for a very short break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid Unfiltered. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid Unfiltered here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. Having a great chat with Greg Olsen, sportscaster, former NFL tight end, and also the founder of Youth Inc. Really an amazing new platform to really just head to and learn about all things youth sports and how you can be helpful in this regard. One thing that stood out to me on the platform, Greg, nutrition. How important is nutrition in youth sports? I played baseball. I had a hot dog. I went home and I had a 20-ounce can of Coke after. I think those days are long gone.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier just that the access to information, the access to training, the way these kids are now taking care of their bodies and performance and whatnot is vastly different than how it used to be. And I think in a lot of ways, that's one of the really good things that has happened as kind of the professionalization of sports has gotten younger and younger is what took me till college to like have a training table and really worry about everything I ate and how I trained and a strength coach and speed training. We did a little of that as a varsity program at my high school. We had a very good varsity program in New Jersey that my dad ran. So we had access to that, but that was not the norm across every high school. And then if you were fortunate enough to go play in college, everybody had that. Now, these kids in middle school have performance coaches. They understand diet. They understand what they put in their body. They understand hydration. So I would argue that's one of the really good things that has come as a result of this kind of evolution of the process. But getting kids to understand that what they put in their body is not just what they look like, right? Like I have one of my sons, he could eat donuts all day, every day, and he will never look different and his weight will never fluctuate. And the point we try to get across to him is everyone thinks about nutrition and what they eat as their physical appearance, right? Am I lean? Am I muscular? Am I chubby? Am I whatever? But it's so much more. It's the engine your body runs on. You want to be really active. You want to not get sick. You want to be able to go to those late practices and have energy to be able to get up the next day and go through a full day of school. Like it's less visual and it's more functional. But to young kids, they just say, well, Dad, I don't get fat. I can eat it. And it's like disconnecting those two things, which is all their little brains understand. So there's an education process there, both to the kids and the families. And listen, at a young age, do we want these kids to be neurotic about what they're putting in their body? No, we don't. You should go to the baseball game and have a hot dog and a soda. You should. But like anything, it's got to be in moderation. It's got to be limited. It can't just be the bulk of your diet. So at the young age, do I think young kids should be eating like they're professional athletes and counting every calories? I don't. I think they need to be kids. They need to have ice cream. They need to go have an ice pop and a Coke and go have fun with their buddies. Like they're not to the point where it needs to become the center of their life, but they can make really good decisions and be smart in what they put in their body for sure.
I will say this there, Greg. When I was in 6th grade, I wish I had access to some whey protein. I mean, let's just be, come on. I mean, I didn't have that. Look, we talk about this a lot at Yahoo Finance. It's the business of sports has changed so dramatically past decade, past 5 years, even the past year. I mean, the contracts are going up. The money the owners are making are going up. Is the business side pushing the parents to push their kids to new extremes?
I think it depends on the purpose of the business. I think there's some elements of the professionalization and the money that's coming into youth sports that's been great. I think it's pushed the game forward, access to training facilities, access to really good coaches, to good programs. I mean, heck, we're doing it here at You Think, right? We've raised private equity money for a startup that not only is a content piece, but we have an entire commerce piece on the other side of You Think. Again, I'm wearing the shirt with my kids' team on it, but like, you can't buy nice premium fanwear, teamwear of your kids' high school travel volleyball team, basketball team, like you can for the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys and the Chicago Bulls, right? Like, it's a different user experience. It's a different purchase experience, and it's a different quality. It's a different, what my wife wears to a Saturday morning baseball game to watch my kid with our team logo on it is a very different article of clothing and a manner in which to acquire it than she wears on a Wednesday afternoon, just at the course of a normal day. It's different brands, it's different quality, it's different experiences. So that's the other side of this. So I say all of that to say there is a lot of money coming into the world of youth sports, and that does not mean it's all bad. If the motivation behind the money, if the motivation behind the investment of the money is to improve experiences, both for the kids and all around them, then I think there's a lot of good that can be had. I think there's a lot of people that are doing really, really good, both in the tech world and the commerce world. The content, of course, has always been key. So do I think there's a lot of people in the world of youth sports that are in it and there's an exploitation of kids? And yes, I do. I think there's a lot of it. I think there's a lot of people out there that see dollar signs on every single kid out there that has a baseball bat or a basketball or a football helmet. I do. I think a lot of events are run poorly. I think a lot of events are money grabs. I think a lot of these showcase national events for girls volleyball and boys baseball and all this, are they money grabs? Do they have really any input into the rest of your career? I don't think 12-year-olds need to be evaluated for future college perspectives. I just think it's a complete waste of time. So I think, like anything, there's good and bad. And I think as long as the motivation behind the money and the motivation behind the investment is for the improvement of the experience of everybody, then it can be done and have a really good impact.
You mentioned that you raised private equity money for this venture. How do you plan to grow, you think, from here?
Yeah, so we're excited. Obviously, we haven't even gotten to our Series A yet. We've done just a small seed round that got us up and running. It's growing faster than we could have imagined, both the content, kind of the roots taking in the content world and the different interviews that we've done that have drawn people to our site. Obviously the ones that I've done with Tom Brady and Malcolm Gladwell. Tomorrow we're going to launch Ryan Day right on the heels of the start of the college football season, talking to the Ohio State head football coach coming off a national championship. Obviously, they open up the number 1 versus number 2 game next Labor Day, on Labor Day weekend against Texas. So a lot of cool conversations there. We have a really wide berth of different interview guests and specialists in that world. But then there's also a bunch of other people on our platform in other areas. Ambassadors in the world of girls softball and Lauren Chamberlain, and Coach Rack, who's the now super famous social media guy, plays for the Savannah Bananas. He's become a good friend of mine. He's just a fascinating, great guy doing this the right way, has a huge following. And he's our baseball ambassador. John Isner's our tennis ambassador. So it is truly a platform of opportunity to really grow and cross-pollinate in all sorts of different content features in conjunction with the commerce stuff. But as we continue to grow, we're going to continue to acquire new brands, continue to acquire new partnerships with schools and travel ball organizations. And we hope the ultimate goal is that we become the one-stop shop for all things youth sports, whether that's education, empowerment, entertainment. You want to come purchase equipment, fanwear, teamwear, cleats, helmets, bats, whatever that is. There's one stop. It's youth.inc. You come there for everything you would need in the youth sports experience. We can get you started. And that's the ultimate long-term vision. And we got a long ways to go, but that's the ultimate goal.
No, you got a lot of great stuff on there. Lastly, Greg, before I let you go, I'd love to get your hot take on this. Got to get a prediction or two. Shedeur Sanders, you're the expert here. To me, he looks fine. Where do you see him going? What does his career hold?
I'm really fascinated by the whole Shedeur Sanders narrative. The entire preseason, really, since the draft, I guess. From the draft back in the spring to now on the eve of the season starting next weekend. It's a really fascinating case study of social media narratives, rumor, speculation, falsehoods, elements of truth. I think it's all wrapped up into one conversation around a guy who obviously he gets a lot of eyeballs. He gets a lot of headlines. And in today's world of media and journalism, it's a lot easier to have Shedeur Sanders in your headline to draw articles than it is to actually write about the Cleveland Browns in any sort of substance. And, whether it's their quarterback battle or just their team in general, you're not going to get the response. You're not going to get the immediate, feedback from across the both social media and just general media landscape. I think it's weird. I think it's troubling. I think the notion that a team drafts you and then is supposedly setting you up for failure is just, I don't even know. And I feel weird even even acknowledging it. It just feels very internet troll rumor that exists a lot in our society right now. I think Shedeur Sanders is a good young quarterback. I think he's an NFL quarterback. Do I think he's a starting superstar quarterback tomorrow? I don't. And if the Cleveland Browns thought he was, he would be the quarterback. So I guess my biggest point of saying all of that, forget Shedeur Sanders, forget anyone else. NFL coaches and front offices are in the business of winning. And the notion that they care who it is, what your last name is, what you look like, what school you came from, if you can help a team win, that is the only thing. It is the complete opposite of how youth sports should be. Professional sports is an outcome-driven organization. We don't care how we get there. The object is to win or I lose my job. So the notion that Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback on the roster and Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns decide not to play him and they risk losing as a result of playing an inferior quarterback, they would all lose their jobs, is just so stupid that it almost doesn't even really deserve as much time as we've given it.
Hey, I appreciate you keeping it real. These are the takes we need to hear. Greg Olsen, sportscaster and former NFL tight end, and more importantly, just launcher of Youth Inc. It is a fabulous portal for all things youth sports. I encourage everyone to go check it out. It's just really great. Greg, good to meet you. Welcome to Yahoo Finance, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really enjoyed the combo.
All right.
Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate it. And that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid Unfiltered. Please continue to hit us with all those likes on the podcast platforms. Love the feedback. It makes me better at doing this every single week. We'll talk to you soon.